Origins of Demolition Man. A former professional wrestler, Demolition Man has had a dubious and difficult career as a costumed adventurer. Although he began as one of Captain America's closest allies during a difficult time for the patriotic hero, much of his life following that has proven hard. Recently he has started working as Sam Wilson's pilot and field backup. A former professional wrestler, Demolition Man has had a dubious and difficult career as a costumed adventurer. Although he began as one of Captain America's closest allies during a difficult time for the patriotic hero, much of his life following that has proven hard. Recently he has started working as Sam Wilson's pilot and field backup. When Steve Rogers was forced to give up his identity as Captain America, Dennis returned as D-Man and gathered the Falcon and Nomad to try and track down and help a missing Steve. Later, when the makeshift group disbanded, D-Man was the only one to remain by Steve's side. Fighting alongside Steve as the captain, D-Man often was conflicted with his own feels of inadequacy, and these were only made worse when he was beat in a fight with Titania. After this bout, D-Man took to trying to avoid fights, going as far as to hide from villains. D-Man's attitude towards fighting crime was very similar to Steve's, and he didn't condone extreme attitude towards bad guys. This led Nomad, who was becoming disillusioned with Steve's attitude after having found his own independence, to believe D-Man was merely sucking up to Steve. Nomad disliked D-Man from the start, and things only intensified when Nomad became paranoid that D-Man was making moves on his girl. During a fight with the Serpent Society, D-Man was poisoned by Viper, and despite his best efforts couldn't muster the strength to fight against the current Captain America and Battlestar. D-Man, as well as Nomad and Diamondback, were arrested and held prisoner by the Commission on Superhuman Activities. Diamondback and Nomad later escaped, D-Man opting to stay behind, believing that staying behind and being honest would work more in their favor than an escape attempt. D-Man, the lone prisoner, was held for weeks and subjected to inhumane conditions and interrogation. The Commission eventually let him go when they had captured Steve Rogers and saw no more use for him. Inferno. When the Avengers temporarily disbanded following the manipulations of Dr. Druid, Captain America picked D-Man as the first recruit of the new group. The two sought to recruit further team members to help against the threat of the Inferno, but not soon after, D-Man was blown up over the Arctic Ocean in a battle with Ultimatum and was presumed dead by Steve, who spent hours searching the Atlantic for him. Operation Galactic Storm, Infinity War and Fighting Chance. A year later, it was discovered Dennis had actually survived and was living amongst an Inuit community. He returned to civility but wasn't entirely stable after the incident. In a catatonic state for weeks and not speaking a word, Dennis was attacked by his Infinity War doppelganger and went missing. However, after the attack, he wound up living in the sewers, amongst a colony of homeless people called Zero Town. While protecting a child living there, he began to speak again and started to protect the inhabitants of Zero Town. Much later on, Steve, who believed he didn't have longer left to live, wanted to mount a team for a final assault on AIM Island. One of his very first choices for the team was Dennis. Dennis turned down Steve's offer, unaware that Steve thought he was dying. Once an Avenger and disassembled, D-Man was one of the 39 Avengers called upon during the Morgan Conquest story arc. Namor and Moondragon mocked D-Man for being a low standard of Avenger. He was also one of the many heroes called during the Avengers Disassembled story arc. The Pulse. D-Man resurfaced later and seemingly saved a jewelry store from robbers. Ben Urich investigated the attempted robbery and discovered that, despite stopping the robbers, D-Man took some of the jewelry for himself. Ben Urich, having never heard of D-Man before, was surprised to find that he was at one time an Avenger and is now living in the sewer. Upon tracking down D-Man, when questioned about the jewelry, D-Man claimed that a Cosmic Games master had ordered him to find the Infinity Gems, but instead he was stealing regular jewelry to help buy supplies for the people of Zero Town. Urich returned later with Daredevil, one of Dennis' favorite superheroes, and asked Dennis to come with them and get professional help. Civil War, The Initiative and Dark Reign. The help promised to D-Man seems to have inconsistent success, as the Superhuman Registration Act was enforced across the country. D-Man sided with Captain America in being against registration. D-Man went into hiding and sat out the war to avoid conflict out of fear of having to fight against heroes. Tony Stark later sought to recruit D-Man for the initiative. Dennis turned down the offer. When Norman Osborn rose to power following the secret invasion, Dennis tried to contact Osborn by phone hoping to join the initiative, with honest intentions believing the initiative needed heroes now more than ever, but was refused and his subsequent calls went ignored. He then gave up the superhero life again and joined the U.S. Army. While fighting in Iraq, he managed to keep his true identity a secret to most his squad mates, except for a few men who have participated with him in a couple of stealth missions to destroy enemy operations. After a while, D-Man began to relish in his position as a superhero on the front lines, donning a new costume, and seemed finally content with himself. The Heroic Age and Beyond. Later that year, D-Man returned to New York and seemed to have regressed to a stage of severe depression, citing loneliness and wondering if Captain America ever mentions him. His confidence was reassured when he later won a pie-eating contest held by the Avengers. D-Man soon was visited by what he believed was the Cosmic Games Master, once again requesting he obtain the Infinity Gems which are now in the possession of his former teammates the Avengers. The team ignored his attempts at contacting them and he soon allied himself with Wonder Man's Revengers team. He was beat badly and apprehended. Manically claiming how it's the Avengers' fault for not recognizing him as a former member and heeding his warning. Right before the incursion and reincarnation of Earth 616, D-Man was accidentally resurrected by a teen using a magic book to manifest a demon. On the New World, when he wasn't pro wrestling, D-Man got a job working for Sam Wilson, active as Captain America as his pilot, mechanic, technician, and field backup. He would lend support to Sam while he confronted Serpent Solutions and the AmeriCops. He also started dating a new boyfriend, Chris. Unfortunately, his time as Sam's support came to an end when Sam quit right before Hydra's takeover of America. Soon after, Chris left him and so did his powers. It caused him to go through a depressive episode where he locked himself in his apartment and stuffed his face with junk food. It came to an abrupt end when he punched his television when none of the game show contestants could answer a trivia question that he was the answer for. He finally found a new purpose when one of Lockjaw's long-lost siblings was adopted by his neighbor. When Lockjaw came looking for this pup, D-Man was recruited as his new human sidekick as they teleported around the universe reuniting his Lockjaw's family. Ravencroft. When Kingpin and his associates decide to reopen Ravencroft, Dunphy gets a job there as a prison guard. He would make an impression by talking down inmate, the Punisher, from hurting a guard, who was just doing his job. Unfortunately, he was shivved and nearly died immediately after. Supertrans. Soon after, Dunphy would ditch Ravencroft for the Matt Baker House, a LGBTQ and youth center in Queens. While running a support group for transgender superhumans, Spider-Man was thrown through the window by members of the current Sinister Syndicate. Despite his loss of powers, Dunphy jumped to action and led his superhuman group members in a fight against the Syndicate. Powers. Dennis' strength, endurance, and durability have been greatly enhanced, so much so that he can lift weights of almost 15 tons, survive plane crashes and take punches from enhanced beings like Anaconda and even Titania.